Previously on podcast Without Pretense.
Welcome to episode 99.
I'll get the name of the show eventually. One day.
I don't think it's a cult. They didn't ask for any money up front, but I've been going to meetings.
I'm Jonathan Strickland.
I am the man who has trouble with prepositions.
And I'm Eric Sandine.
And together, we make the etymologists, the most exciting group of crime fighters this side of the thesauruses.
And today, we're going to go into the origins of the phrase off the reservation. Because I looked it up today, and I heard it, and I'm like, hey, isn't that racist? And it's like, well, sort of, and sort of not. But that's not what we really do.
When you think about reservations, already problematic, right? I mean, just the concept of a reservation in that sense.
Like, hey, you people, you stay over there. Yeah, we know you were everywhere. Just stay over there.
Yeah,
we reserve that land.
I know that all of this used to belong to all different tribes of you, but now all of you get to stay in this one spot. Well, that's fantastic. I made a terrible reservation joke in an episode of Mildly Exciting Tales of Astonishment once, because one of the villains in my series is the Algonquin alchemist, and the Algonquin was a tribe of Native Americans in New York. It's also the name of a hotel there, obviously. But the alchemist was a brilliant scientist who happened to be Native American, and he had there was a point where the head villain is confronting the alchemist for a perceived failure and says, I would have no reservation in killing you. And then there's a dramatic pause, and he says, reservation. And the alchemist is like, yeah, I get it. Very funny.
That's when Jonathan was kidnapped at Arrow Point, which is a location.
Well,
not a...
While we're being racially insensitive, how about we talk about this week's movie?
Sure. So, this week's movie was Surf Nazis Must Die. I keep wanting to say Surf Ninjas Must Die, but that's incorrect. Surf Ninjas, a very popular children's movie that when you look up surf is one of the top 3 movies that shows up on IMDb. Number 3 was the movie we watched, Surf Nazis Must Die from Troma.
Yes. So for those who are not aware, we do this thing on Podcast Without Pretense where we try to watch movies that are rated low for we mere mortals. Although Ayaz has taken an interesting approach by picking terrible movies and then rating them very, very highly by using a separate Netflix profile. At any rate, we pick really bad movies and we try to see how long we can endure the really bad movies without any kind of distraction. There's no second screen allowed, no alcohol, no second person in the room, if possible. And this week was a movie I had picked, Surf Nazis Must Die, a Troma film. So how far did you guys get into the movie before you allowed a distraction into the experience? Ayaz?
A whopping goose egg of a 0 because I was at work, but I watched it anyway.
Ayaz holding strong at 0 seconds.
I think I have the most amount of zeros for the group.
I think so. And you watched this at work?
Well, I was working from home, so I got to sit on my couch and watch it. But I was still at work hours, so I had to pay attention. But if you want to talk about me staring at the screen, probably about 3 minutes. I did try to watch it straight, and I was like, I better get back to work. 3 minutes.
Eric, what about you?
I was also a big fat 0, mainly because I got home when I was supposed to put it on, and there were bugs in production, and I needed to fix those. But it was the time I'd allotted to watch the movie, so I just had to do it.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. Work definitely takes precedence over shitty movies. I watched the whole goddamn movie all the way through with no distractions.
Holy crap!
Impressive. It was only 90 minutes, so
it was actually pretty easy. It was actually pretty easy because nothing really of any real note happens for the majority of this movie.
No, that's what I was saying. Like, I don't get how you kept watching it because nothing seemed to happen.
I kept waiting for something to happen, Eric. Yeah. I was waiting for something to happen.
It does, like in minute 55 when the grandma goes bonkers, but we should get to that in a minute.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, I took very few notes about this movie, mostly because I mean, when I say I had no distractions, I didn't take notes either. I know some people argue that when I take notes, that's counts as a distraction because I'm looking down while I'm writing notes instead of keeping my eyes on the screen. So this time I didn't do it. I just watched the whole thing, but as a result, I didn't write too much. But my first sentence is, "This was barely a movie." By
That's
which
fair.
I mean that there's not enough of a narrative for it to really be a film. So first we got to get this out of the way. The surf Nazis are a gang of surfers. This is supposed to take place outside of Los Angeles, I think, right?
Yeah, and somewhere in the the not too distant future in Los Angeles.
Not too distant future, there's been a massive earthquake which has destroyed a lot of the infrastructure in LA, which is barely important at all in the movie.
It's really never brought up.
It's only important for one reason, and that's for the grandmother or the mother, really. It's the only reason is for the mother to have lost everything. That's the only reason it's important. It doesn't really impact any other characters in any meaningful way. But you have the surf Nazis, and at the very beginning of the movie, they are teaching the surf Nazi youth the valuable lessons of the surf Nazis, which include that gangs rule the beaches and the surf Nazis rule the gangs. So the idea being that there are several gangs that run all the different beaches up and down the coastline of Southern California, and the surf Nazis are the most powerful of these gangs. The surf Nazis members consist of, I think, like 5 or 6 people, 3 of which are people who have adopted actual Nazi names, as in names from Nazis. Like there's the leader's Adolf, his girlfriend is Eva, and then you have Mingala. And everyone else just has names like Butch or Hook or Smeg. Hook, by the way, has a hook for a hand. That's clever. And so the plot of the movie is just that the surf Nazis are kind of trying to consolidate power, and everyone's resisting them, and they never really seem to come across as particularly capable or terrifying at all. So it's a really odd movie to watch because you've got a gang that mostly just surfs, occasionally commits petty theft, and then otherwise isn't doing anything.
They're dressed straight out of gear from Hot Topic. Like that's
it's well, with lots of swastikas as well.
Yeah.
So it's clear that the Nazi regalia is really just meant as a shock tactic, right? It's just meant to try and be a shocking thing for the film, because the actual gang doesn't seem to have any real connection to Nazis or neo-Nazis. They've adopted the regalia, but they don't seem to harbor any of the specific.
And a bit of the racism. There's a bit of the racism that they bring up.
Yeah, but directed solely at the black characters in the movie. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of. There's nothing else really that's in the whole Nazi/fascist kind of philosophy that makes its way into their gang, which just means that they just pose as Nazis. It's like someone dressing up in a costume. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the point is just to say, like, these characters are they think they're badasses, but they're actually really lame, and they don't really understand the people that they're attempting to imitate. Although everyone else is acting like they are supposed to be these incredible badasses, even though, again, all we ever see them do is commit some petty theft, and they do eventually kill a guy, but it's because the guy has the nerve to resist them. And then eventually, when the other gangs attack them, one at a time, they kill off the other gangs, which is weird because the other gangs all get together and decide the surf Nazis are bringing too much heat on gang members in general, so they need to be wiped out. But instead of all grouping together and thus overpowering them with numbers, they have each 3-member gang try to take on the surf Nazis separately, and the surf Nazis just end up taking them out, more by accident than any actual ability.
Yeah, when you think about Nazis, you think about sometimes you think organized. They kind of get their stuff together. I mean, if you're gonna go and try to kill a bunch of people, you got to have your act together. This group of 5, as it was, I think it was like, and Smeg being the best character in the entire movie. Um, these guys are really seriously disorganized. If you're gonna be a gang that's running the beaches, which means you control, I guess, the fish flow. I'm not sure exactly why controlling the beach will really cause an issue here. Something like they control the docks. Shouldn't they have their shit together? And they're a gang. And even the other thing is their swastikas aren't even consistent from their van to their flags. They're backwards on the wall. It's like you guys are really half-assing this. If you're gonna be a Nazi, you might as well go full on. But not that I recommend such a thing. But in a movie sense.
Let's not title this episode "Full On Nazi."
Don't be a full-on Nazi. Grammar Nazi. I did mess up my prepositions.
Nazis.
No one goes full.
Surf.
See?
No one goes full.
Surf. That makes it even more offensive once you know what the reference is. I say we call this movie "Surf Nazis," the movie you should not see. Not see.
Got it. The Nazi
okay, so
club.
anyway. Going back to the movie, so you've got this rivalry between the gangs, and you also have this guy. He's essentially, I guess, he's a surveyor who works for the oil companies, and he's the who stands up to the Nazi gang, and they kill him as a result. And his mom and the elderly black mother character, sassy beyond belief, has lost her house as a result of the massive earthquake in LA. And has to move into a home, and then she loses her son, who is the last thing in her life she had to lose. So she decides she wants to go on a revenge kick. So this becomes a revenge movie, where the person seeking revenge is an overweight elderly black lady, and she's going after a gang of Nazis.
Surf Nazis, so they're in relatively good condition. They can surf.
And not only that, but she's the most effective killer in the entire movie. An elderly black lady who terrorizes a gang of Nazis. And she does so on the back of she does so on a motorcycle. And she manages to kill the last 3 Nazis that are left. Everyone else has died as a result of earlier attacks, some by accident. And one of whom is not dead, but has been put into timeout by his mom, so he's stuck at home. And the movie ends with her riding off on the motorcycle, cackling with glee after killing the last of the Nazis. Keep in mind, her son's still dead, and her house is still destroyed. But she killed those Nazis, and that's worth giggling over. This is a weird movie.
That's the entirety of the movie. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to go through my notes, which do exist.
Sure, please
because
do.
I had a text edit window open. So these are just random thoughts. So this is not as good as when I'm using an envelope and a pen. So I apologize. Sometime in the near future. Okay, Adolf has a scarf. Updated Nazi flag with a red circle and white field. Kind of looks like Japan's flag. Harpoon gun shoots a crucifix. Is that supposed to be symbolic intentionally or not? There's the quote, "I am the Führer of the new beach." And then I write, any reason the new Adolf doesn't wear a Hitler mustache? He actually wears like a regular Freddie Mercury style mustache. Adolf's wearing a cape at some point. There's a great piece of dialogue here. "What's this all about, Kraut?" And so Adolf holds up a bag of sand and says, "Sand." Okay. Then Adolf meets Leroy. Sparks flew because Leroy's wearing his short shorts. Quote, you kind of look like a white man I used to know, except you fell down a chimney." That's how we offended Leroy. Leroy gets offended and gently places Adolf on the ground. Because it looks like he's trying to wrestle him down, but he kind of just places him gently on the ground. It's really sweet, kind of like, lay down. Okay. I guess they kill Leroy. And then I finally figured the movie out. Will Grandma take revenge on the Nazis? Didn't she wield a chainsaw earlier in the movie? She did, actually, because she was like cutting trees down. Controlling the beach controls what? Because it seems like a retirement home is operating just fine because Grandma's in a retirement home. And like, if this is like a post-apocalyptic future where these surf Nazis run everything, why is a retirement home just working just fine? It seems like the nurse is cool and everything. Let's see. Also, is there any reason why the swastika seems to be inverted sometimes? This seems to be like 3 or 4 warring gangs, and the rest of the world is doing its own thing. I think one of the Nazis is wearing a Confederate coat. There's another one. I was under the impression if a grenade explodes by your neck, there's a scene in the movie where Grandma or the mom throws a grenade at a sleeping Nazi and it lands at his neck. The man runs off, starts screaming, "Ow, my neck." I was under the impression grenades blow your head off and you don't have the ability to say, my neck. Loved that the boom mic was in the shot. That was a really great shot of that. Granny Payback is hilarious. She seems like she's a commercial actress. Oh, the Nazis finally show up to the nursing home, tying together the worlds. Oh, that was her son. I thought that was her grandson. I would be wrong. Those are my notes for Surf Nazis Must Die.
I'll also say two other notes I made. One was that this movie really wanted to be the surf, like West Coast version of The Warriors. You guys have seen that movie, right? Please tell me
I have.
That movie. Okay.
But it's not that.
I really felt like, no, it's not. But I really felt like that's what this was trying to be, especially with the surf Nazis trying to. They do hold a meeting where they have all the other gangs there, and the surf Nazis are essentially making their case to consolidate power so that they can really take over the city, because the idea is that in the wake of this massive earthquake, the infrastructure is so damaged that the gangs can essentially rule the city, not just the beaches. And I thought, oh, well, this sounds a lot like the Warriors. But of course, they're demanding it to have the Nazi angle on everything, which mostly just means that everyone's supposed to dress up like the Nazis. And so the other gangs are like, whoa, we're all about, the rape and the pillage, but we're not dressing up like Nazis. So that doesn't work out for them. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that every time there was a scene where the Nazis were all together in a group, it felt to me like every other line of dialogue was missing, because everyone was delivering a line like it was important and had meaning, but no two lines seemed to be in the same conversation or flow at all. There was no context.
Yeah,
it's really weird.
It wasn't even like a good trauma movie. Because a trauma movie, I expect it to be a little bit more over the top, but it wasn't. It was pretty tame, actually.
Yeah. There's toward the end of the movie, you get, middle/end of the movie, you get some nudity, brief nudity. And there is a little bit of gore toward the end of the film, but nothing like you would expect in a trauma movie, right? No over-the-top gory violence. And that was kind of odd, too. So, yeah, I thought that as well. As I was watching it, I was like, this feels like it's a movie that, with a little bit of work, could have at least been a good exploitation film. But this was not there. It wasn't nearly coherent enough, and certainly not over the top enough. It definitely had a lot of elements of your typical grindhouse cinema, in that there's a lot of this movie where nothing really interesting happens. And people have weird relationships with each other that aren't consistent from scene to scene. You'll have a scene where two characters seem to really be on the same page, mostly Mingala and Adolf. And then another scene where they're arguing it with each other for no reason that's ever revealed in the movie. Like, they're yelling at each other, but there's been nothing to set up what the conflict is. So, weird, bad movie. I mean, I watched the whole damn thing. I felt also kind of obligated to do it since I chose the movie.
I thought they were so under budget. I'm like, okay, we're not getting this real scale kind of thing going, where you have surf Nazis and you got a lot of other gangs going on that trying to take over the beaches, and there's some kind of hierarchy. So if you control the surfers, you control the beaches, and so that's a big deal. I'm like, okay, you know what? They don't have a lot of money, so I don't really have a lot of scale here. And then they go to this scene in the retirement home, and I'm like, okay, this is still a little bit too relaxed. She looking a little bit more, Walking Dead, a little bit more dilapidated. Beautiful white, room where this woman's getting medication or whatever it might be. And that I even forgave. I'm like, you know what? Maybe they just didn't have the budget for that. But then there's this scene where Smeg goes to his real mom's house and is like basically grounded. Right. Smeg is he's a Nazi member. He's a part of the surf Nazi gang. And in one of the first scenes, we find out there's a woman named Smeg's mom, who is not Smeg's mom. It's just, I guess that's her nickname in the group. He goes to his actual mom's house. This blonde lady who's like making cookies or something, a giant mixing bowl. It looks like everything is completely fine, and he seems to be a lot more with it. He seems to be pretty dim-witted as a Nazi. Yeah. I know this sounds nuts, but when he's at home with his mom, just saying that out loud, dim-witted as a Nazi is the title. When he's at home with his mom is talking down to him, saying, "You're not hanging out with that gang again. Those neo-Nazis again. Oh, I don't like that." And he's like, "Oh, mom." It was like this weird scene of like parental control.
And she says something to the point of like he's like Adolf's expecting me, and she's like, oh, is that what little whatever is calling himself now or something like that? Yeah.
And so to me it felt like, okay, wait a minute, maybe the sense of scale that I am getting from this movie is correct. There's like maybe 12 kids who are play fighting, and they've taken it too far on the beach. But like the rest of the world, there's nothing that went wrong. It was like, yeah, it was an earthquake and some stuff was on fire. But that happens. It's Los Angeles. Like that happens all the time. So maybe it wasn't as big a deal. Maybe it's like an earthquake that just happened in San Francisco like 2 weeks ago. It's like, oh, the world is over. No, only to 12 people. They didn't get the memo that things are fine.
It really did feel like the kind of movie where the people who were writing the movie felt like they were being super edgy, and really it just comes across as lame.
This meandered as much as a talking cat.
Yeah.
I don't think
agree.
It was
disagree.
I don't.
It didn't
I
just
disagree.
meander around like, okay, here's an.
You think
the events were more connected.
At least we didn't have
a talking cat had a better narrative.
We didn't have Smeg. No, wait. We never had Smeg leave the beach, walk across the street, and end up in a redwood forest. So
that's true.
Whereas with a talking cat,
better geography with the Nazis, just a good sense of, actually a very bad sense of scale for talking cat ? Exclamation point ? I think.
Yeah, also, I'd like to point out that a talking cat had approximately 73 more establishing shots than Surf Nazis Must Die. That being said, every opportunity they had, they showed fucking surf Nazis surfing.
Oh, yeah, they were cutscenes to that, and they had nothing to do with the plot. Also, by the way, the art for the movie poster does not happen. There is no blonde cowering somehow while a Nazi is on a surfboard with a chainsaw sticking through the surfboard. That does not happen in the movie, so sorry.
I'm betting the cover art was just concept art, and then when they started filming, they're like, yeah, we can't afford that one.
All right, but they do have a Nazi who has a hook for a hand, albeit it is not like a crab claw like it is in the poster. And they do have a surfboard that has a switchblade in the front of it, which doesn't seem like it would be particularly useful. And in fact, isn't.
Definitely no more useful than an actual switchblade.
There was a fantastic the scene. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I do wish that we almost got movies of some of the other gangs. Like you had the Japanese gang that had martial arts weaponry.
Right.
And you had
I thought we were gonna go more into those gangs. Like I thought we were gonna see more of them. But we didn't at all. Like we saw nothing.
Yeah, there was the different gangs included a gang of tie-dyed bleach blonde surfer dudes who I guess were supposed to be badasses. And then you had like three kind of grungy guys. Were those like the Pipe Dreams or something like that? It was, I forget the names they had for the different gangs. But when I remember one of the girls, there's a girl in one of the scenes who's talking to the bleach blonde kid, the Smeg. She's talking to Smeg. He's trying to impress these two young ladies, and he's talking about the various gangs, and she's talking about one of the other ones that she likes more than the surf Nazis, and he's trying to impress her. And I think the name of the gang she had said was something along like the Pipe Dreams or something like that. Pipe was definitely in the name.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, and I thought when I saw the meeting of all the gangs, I thought, oh well, that's got to be the guys in tie dye, because they look like surfer dudes, and this girl was a total beach bunny type of character, so that's got to be them. No, it turns out that the gang that has that name was the grungy looking dudes, and those are the dudes who try to mastermind the counterattack against the surf Nazis, and their brilliant plan is to have all the other gangs attack the surf Nazis while they hold back. You know what I thought was weird? I mean, besides this whole goddamn movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's not a lot of that's normal in this movie, but okay, what was weird?
So you've got the bikers in this movie too, right? Those guys look like they would be the biggest legitimate threat to the surf Nazis. They also don't appear to really be surfers. They're bikers, and maybe the idea is that their turf is the turf that butts up against the beaches. I don't know.
Right, because it's surf and turf.
Surf Nazis. Yeah, exactly. The surf Nazis apparently are intimidating the bikers. Like, the bikers are genuinely intimidated by the surf Nazis and therefore work with them and are part of the network that supplies the surf Nazis with money. But they seem like they would be the ones who would pose the largest physical threat to the surf Nazi gang. And yet when the Pipe Dreams, or whatever their name is, when they call their own council with the other two surfer gangs, they don't bring in the bikers. And I thought that was really weird when I was watching the movie. I'm like, why would you not call in the guys who seem to pose the biggest threat to your common enemy and really leverage them as well as these nutzos on surfboards? And I guess I just have a better head for strategy than typical surf gang member. It's the only answer I can come up with.
I was just thinking about the scene where they attach the switchblade to the surfboard. There's like an inordinate amount of time drilling holes into the surfboard. Mm-hmm. I don't know to what end there was, because I just see these guys. I see him like carving out a spot for what ends up being the knife, but he's just constantly drilling holes, and I don't think the scene goes anywhere. And I'm not a surfer, but I'm pretty sure that holes in the board is a bad idea, especially if you're making lots of them. But maybe I missed what else happened there. Maybe he put like string through it and made it a kite. I have no idea.
I think that was supposed to be the trigger mechanism for allowing the blade to pop out.
Just many a hole?
I think the hole was supposed to be where he would string through whatever the thing would be to allow him to activate the switchblade, because presumably you'd have to find a way of actually making the blade pop out while you're surfing. And I think that was the idea. But I mean, let's not try and impose.
At what point would that become an advantageous weapon to have?
I was just about to say, let's not try to impose logic on this film, because it clearly has no regard for it. So,
well, I'm thinking the reason why the bikers weren't around was that they weren't available for that day of casting. They're like, no, we're not working for donuts tonight, and they were not going to be there.
I guess so. Ayaz, it is your turn, I believe, to pick a film.
Okay, so what's fun is that on my PWP profile on Netflix, thanks to Left Behind 2, I am being given all of these faith-based movies. Now, I haven't decided on one yet.
Sure? Yeah, I was about to say, are you sure you really want to attempt fate? We already discussed 2 movies, because I did Left Behind 3 after I watched Left Behind 2, and I don't know that we offended anyone, but I'm not really sure we want to continue down that pathway.
Oh, I'm not trying to. I just found it fascinating.
Let's do an A/B experiment here. We haven't offended people, or we don't know, so let's just go straight for it. Why not?
To be fair, we also don't know if anyone's listening to this.
No, it's true. That's why A/B testing for us is very hard because the sample is very small.
Okay. So all right. Well, I will trust your judgment.
Okay. This is really not useful because again, like my profile. Oh, fuck. My profile gives me suggestions based on my high ratings of these movies. That's the key here. I rate these really highly. And one of the ones it's suggesting, and I don't want to watch it. That's why I said, oh, fuck. Because it's a Yui Bowl movie.
Oh, God.
It's, see? Exactly. We're like, oh, no, we don't want that. So what I would like you guys to do, because I would like to avoid watching this movie, which will be a crime against humanity, why don't you guys banter, and I will try to find something, at least a candidate.
I don't know which Yui Bowl movie it is.
It's called Rampage, Capital Punishment. Here's the synopsis. A violent anti-hero has plans to change the world and exact revenge on the rich by taking hostages and using his captives as his political platform.
This is a 2014 movie.
This is 2014, 93 minutes. Rotten Tomatoes, they got... actually, I have nothing for Rotten Tomatoes.
I don't know.
57% for them.
The first review terrifies me. I really enjoyed this movie. I had a lot of good points to make about this country's government. It was dark and sinister and extremely violent. I found it to be a fun flick that was just as good and meaningful as the first. Yui Ball sucks at everything, but this time he got it right.
That's fascinating. Let's see, what else is there? I've already seen all these terrible movies. I need to find something. Top picks for PWP. Here we go. This is what I was telling you about. There's the Bible, the Book of Daniel, the Hunger Games, strangely enough, Fireproof, the 4400, Left Behind.
Encounter. I don't need to hear all your top picks. I just need you to pick a goddamn movie.
Wait a second. Here's what I needed to get to. The Walking Dead is included in this list, which is a curiosity. Is it about the whole Jesus?
Walking Dead is a post-apocalyptic. Yeah. Left Behind is post-apocalyptic. Walking Dead is post-apocalyptic.
Marriage Retreat, which is a faith-based tale. Okay, I gotta find something.
All right. I'm going to look at the bottom of the list for dramas because we haven't done a drama, I don't think, except for maybe that one suspense thriller that I never finished watching.
What, a Talking Cat?
No, not a Talking Cat. Question mark, exclamation point, question mark.
Well, I kind of want to watch this, but this actually might be good. It's got Thomas Hayden Church in it. It's called Whitewash. But we don't watch good movies on this show. 80% according to the critics, 38% according to the audience.
Wow. So apparently it's just too good for audiences.
After recklessly killing a pedestrian, a drunken snowplow operator finds himself stranded in the forest and courting death in the bitter cold. This sounds fun.
Okay.
I'm like,
you guys have heard about the movie Honey, right?
Yeah, the Jessica Alba movie.
Did you know there's a Honey 2?
Oh, good God.
Oh, no. Let's see.
Which is funny because the original Honey apparently is not on Netflix.
No.
But Honey 2 is.
Jump right to Honey 2 starring Mario Lopez.
Mario
Lopez. On Netflix.
Fantastic.
I'm not saying pick that. I was just amused that it was actually on here.
Now, see, here's what's funny is that I already added the movie that I really wanted to for my next one to my playlist, and this now has popped up as recommended based on your interest in Daddy Can't Dance.
What's Daddy Can't Dance?
Daddy Can't Dance is the next movie you want to watch for Podcast Without Pretense?
Daddy Can't Dance, I have a best guess for me, 1.2 stars. Average 2.8.
That's gonna be so painful. All right, well, it's not your turn. Thank the heavens. So we still have a reprieve from that one.
Okay, I found a horror movie. Did you want to
watch a good movie? I asked. I mean, there's no reason we can't watch a good movie.
No, I kind of want to watch this shitty one.
Movies that we've enjoyed. It's up to you. Pick whatever you want.
I'm gonna go with Antisocial.
Antisocial,
which is unbeknownst to 5 friends who've gathered for a New Year's Eve house party, an epidemic has erupted outside, breeding chaos all over the planet.
Slash
it's got It's a slasher movie, which means I should not be watching this at work. It's got 0 on by critics on Rotten Tomatoes, 20% for this by audience, and I'm gonna pick it.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be bad.
What's the best guess for you?
It just says member average 3. Where would it have that number now?
You have to look at.
It should be above that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at the expanded one,
best guess for me is 1.5.
4.3.
Wow, 1.3 for me as well. So
4.3 for me because I'm rating these the opposite of how I feel.
Yeah.
So. But the member average is 3. So we're gonna watch Antisocial. It's from 2013, 89 minutes. So if it sucks, it's only 89 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, this is also unrated, so you probably shouldn't watch this in your office.
Oh wait, no, I want to change this. Don't Go Into the Woods sounds better.
Which one?
A group of indie rockers seek solitude deep in the woods, but soon they realize they aren't alone when a sledgehammer brandishing intruder arrives. That sounds way dumber.
What is this movie called?
Don't Go Into the Woods.
Don't Go Into the Woods.
You guys can vote if I can change my pick. It's either Antisocial or Don't Go Into the Woods.
Dude, whatever.
Oh, jeez. This I have a 1.1.
Oh, shoot. I accidentally started the movie. Back up. I don't want to start the movie. I just want to find out more about it.
Don't Go Into the Woods looks terrible.
13% on the tomato meter.
From average is 2.4 stars. For me, it's got 3.5.
3.5 for you?
Again, for my lousy profile.
You're looking at the podcast without pretense.
Yes,
exactly. Remember that.
You said 1.1 for you, Eric?
This is 1.1 for me. This is lower on your podcast without pretense profile.
That's correct. The other one had like a 4.1. This has 3.5. So I'm gonna like this.
This is also terrifying because I have a 1.2, which means for once Eric's rating is lower than mine. Recommended based on your interest in Mummy Maniac and Antisocial.
It's directed by Vincent D'Onofrio. Wait, that's right. That's nice, right? Because Vincent D'Onofrio. I have no idea. This is gonna suck. I like the ratings. I'm looking at the description here. This movie is cerebral, violent, and dark. It's good. All right.
Well, here's a review. This will allow us to get a little bit of an insight into what we're going to endure for next week. Original and different, but a really dreadful way to waste 83 minutes of your life. This film simply wasn't good level. The music, quote, parentheses, so-called, in parentheses, that makes this a musical was terrible. I'd rather listen to cats mating for 83 minutes than listen to this dreck. And there were simply no scares whatsoever in the film. Extremely boring. Nothing really happens. It didn't work as a horror film, and it didn't work as a musical. I really can't believe some of the reviews for this film before mine. I guess the true definition of a horror film, or even a musical, is really not understood by some. Save your time and pick another film to watch, like Antisocial.
Damn it.
I made up that last sentence.
Okay, good. Otherwise, there's another one that says, this movie sucks. I wish I had that 43 minutes of my life back, period. I watched 43 mins, period. And this just keeps... So they watched 43 minutes and then gave up. I cannot wait.
My favorite review I found thus far is, the most interesting and exciting thing in this movie is a shirt that says, quote, I piss excellence. That is the end of the review.
Okay, I think
Eric, you just spoiled the best part of the movie for us.
Apparently.
Oh wow!
All right,
this is
I look forward to having nothing to say about this movie next week.
All right.
And then I look forward to watching Daddy Can't Dance the week after.
Oh, it's gonna happen. It's already in my queue.
All right, well, is there anything else we would like to talk about apart from the terrible movies that we watch? I was really convinced that we were not going to spend more than 5 minutes on Surf Nazis, but
Surf Nazis was amazing and bad, and I don't know.
I never know what to expect with those movies, because that was also a movie where I was like, I don't think we could talk that much about it, but
I should never put it past myself to spend an inordinate amount of time talking about something stupid.
That's the entire premise of this show, isn't it? That should be the new tagline. Spending an inordinate amount of time talking about something stupid. Podcast without pretense. Can't tell.
What were you saying, Ives? You were talking about a thing.
Yes, real life stuff. I've been playing basketball again. I haven't played basketball in like 10 years. And there's a park, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to play basketball. So I'm way out of shape, and I can't shoot for anything, but I'm having fun again. So I'm enjoying that.
That's excellent.
There's nothing to do with anything. How about you, Eric?
Yeah.
Are you doing any sports or recreational activities of fun?
Sometimes there's hiking. But no, well, I mean, that'll happen. I'm actually moving into a new house with the girlfriend at the end of the month, which is right by a gym.
Does she know that? Or are you just like packing your stuff and just dropping it off?
Yeah.
Like, no,
it's a little bit of a stealth thing.
There's the new movie, The Squatting Boyfriend. Although that sounds like it could be a different kind of movie.
Yeah, no, Squatting Boyfriend does not sound like you're moving.
That's
I apologize.
not a marketable tagline.
Goodness gracious.
But yeah, that's about it. What else have I done? I've been really trying to go to lots of like social tech event things around town because I don't usually do that, and I don't like doing that, and I don't like many of the people. But I've been really forcing myself to go, and so I've met some people.
I was about to say, like, so wait, Eric, are you telling me that forcing yourself to watch terrible movies is now making you force yourself to do other things you hate to do?
Yeah, that might be it. Maybe I've just gotten so used to it. It's like, well, I watch Surf Nazis. This hour will be fine. I can hang out with these people and watch a presentation.
We're setting the bar low. You're like, that wasn't so bad. It wasn't as bad as Rock and Roll Frankenstein. So I enjoyed that.
That seems to be our motto. In fact, that should be the slogan for the show. Podcast without pretense. Not as bad as Rock and Roll Frankenstein.
It should be. To this day, I still use it as like the quintessential horrible movie we've watched. Like when I'm describing it at the show or anything to anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, Mummy Maniac's pretty terrible, but that's just terrible for a different reason.
It's an incredibly misogynistic film that is really poorly made. So it's terrible on multiple levels.
That's both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's more to it than just that. I mean, the script itself is terrible. Whereas Rock and Roll Frankenstein is a homophobic movie that is made just well enough for it to be horrifying that people put that much care into something that ugly.
Right. Then there's the Insane Clown Posse movies, which has more money, not as offensive, but more of the wonderment of how.
I think
how
that's
did
offensive.
People put money into this?
It's offensive in the sense of that money could have gone to literally anything else. So yeah. Wow. Now I'm going back and thinking about all the horrible movies we've watched, and of course the list I have is incomplete, which we've said multiple times that there are ones that I never put down on the list, but Sand Sharks.
Oh yeah, Sand Sharks. That was pretty bad. You know what I watched the other day? I watched the new Godzilla. I rather enjoyed it.
The Bryan Cranston one. What'd you think?
I did. Did either of you see it, by the way?
I've seen it twice.
I have not seen it, but I've heard about it.
I mean, yeah, I really liked it. I will not give away any spoilers then, but yeah, it was enjoyable.
Was there a giant rampaging lizard that breathed fire in the movie?
Was Ayaz shaking his head no?
I don't agree with what you said.
You
It was
watched
an enjoyable movie.
Well,
one, I watched it in the theater where I was disappointed. And then Liz got a digital copy, so we watched it today because I'm like, maybe it wasn't as bad as I remembered. And it wasn't as bad as I remembered, but still could have lost about 25 minutes of the movie and nobody would have missed it.
No,
you could have lost 25 minutes of the movie and Bryan Cranston wouldn't have been in it.
Yes, exactly. That is very true. Like I love how he had first billing, and then after I start watching it, I'm like, wait, he's going away now.
The biggest criticism I've heard of that film is that that Bryan Cranston, everyone felt that he should have been the protagonist that we follow, as
Yeah.
opposed to the character. It's a son, right? That ends up being the main
Yes.
character.
Yeah.
Brody.
Yeah,
We-
from
Lieutenant
what
Brody.
I understand, everyone I've heard, and I haven't seen the movie, but the biggest criticism I've heard is that everyone really wanted Bryan Cranston to be the main character because he was more interesting than anyone else in the movie.
Oh
He was
no,
the
his
only one-
character was. It was the only one that was developed.
That's what I was watching the movie. I'm like, okay, he's actually emoting. Okay, he's got a drive. He's got something to prove. He's got something to be. He's kind of going after the monster kind of concept and stuff behind it. Makes all the sense in the world. Then it just becomes like, okay, let's follow the military guy around this, which is kind of like the other Godzilla movie. But unlike the other Godzilla movie in '98, Godzilla in this one is in the movie for 10 minutes. Now, I get what the director was going for. He said he's going for this Jaws kind of feel of like, hey, you get a sense of dread for the monster. You're like, okay, when we finally see the monster, it's really cool, and it's respectful of Godzilla's styling. It's not a huge redesign. It's very similar, but not as laughable as a man in suit. But Godzilla's only in it for like 10 minutes. And this movie is 2 hours and 3 minutes. And it's called Godzilla. Otherwise, it's just generic monster movie with let's follow this human tale where, oh, look, there's a dog. That dog will never get killed. Oh, look, there's a child. That child will never die in these movies because that never happens in these films. It never does.
Well, the thing not
that I'm rooting for that. Because I have dogs and child, so no, I don't like it.
Well, no, I was going to say, though, that the difference between Godzilla and Jaws, first of all, the fact that Jaws was not seen very much in the movie was completely due to an accident, but it was an effective accident. And I don't disagree that what the audience comes up with can be more effective than what any sort of special effect you come up with as a filmmaker. I believe that's true, but the problem is that Godzilla, we already know what the monster looks like.
Yeah,
this is a cultural touchstone that we are all familiar with. Even if you've never seen a Godzilla movie in your life, you know what Godzilla looks like because that's how much of a pop culture icon this monster has become.
They also really had no problem showing the other monsters, like through the whole movie.
So it's very weird to not have Godzilla on screen more because the only reason you go to see a Godzilla movie is to watch Godzilla wreak destruction and havoc as it carves out a pathway in whatever city it happens to be attacking, usually Tokyo. So it's really weird to not have Godzilla in the movie more because there's nothing about it being terrifying. Terrifying is not what you're supposed to feel when you're watching a Godzilla movie. It's supposed to be kind of the same sort of thing you feel when you watch, a schlocky slasher film, which is just you want to see the next crazy destructive scene. Just like in a slasher fic, you want to see what's the next crazy method of the bad guy killing one of the disposable teenagers. So when you know what the audience is expecting and you know what the general rules of the genre are, you got to be really creative if you're planning on subverting that or changing it up. And it sounds to me like this movie just didn't manage to do that.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out who was this audience for when I watched it. I'm like, okay, if you're a Godzilla fan, you're disappointed because actually you're disappointed because Godzilla's not really in it a lot, but you're also satisfied because he looks like Godzilla, he acts like Godzilla, he's a badass like Godzilla. So that's kind of neat. Then I realized I think this movie's for people who have never heard of Godzilla. Like they're 10 years old. This is their first Godzilla movie. They're like, oh, there's this giant thing. I saw the toy at Toys R Us or wherever. And they're like, cool, let me watch this movie. And then they finally get into it. That might be my first Godzilla. Otherwise, for everybody else who knows what a Godzilla is, it's kind of like, well.
Yeah. And even as my first Godzilla, it kind of sucks because they obviously combined two different Godzillas.
I just like the idea of my first Godzilla. It just sounds like a play school toy. My first Godzilla.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean,
a band name.
It wasn't a waste of 2 hours. I was entertained. I wouldn't say it's great or that you need to watch it, Jonathan.
Okay. I'm not as big on monster movies these days. I mean, unless it's really creatively done. Like, I thought Cloverfield was interesting. Um, it's not necessarily easy to rewatch. Like, I don't know that there's a lot of rewatchability to that movie. I can still watch Jaws again. I've seen that movie dozens of times, and I can still watch it all the way through because I find it a thoroughly entertaining film. Um, but there are very few monster movies that hold much interest for me. Same sort of thing with Pacific Rim. I still haven't seen that, and I don't
I haven't
have a
seen
huge. Yeah, I'm
I
like, people are
recommend
like,
it.
oh, it's giant robots fighting monsters. I'm like, yeah, I kind of need more than that to hold my attention for it to be a movie. Otherwise, it could be a 22-minute long cartoon.
Right,
And
cut
Okay.
up the fight scenes for me.
Yeah, it's
This
fine.
is a rare time where I will defend a movie like Pacific Rim because okay, it's dumb, it's fun. There is a plot. It's very straightforward, and it's like everything a Michael Bay movie wishes it was, and it's done well. It's kind of like okay, here's your monster movie. Like, why do we care about these robots? Why do we care about these monsters? Like, oh, we have reasons to care. Okay, and then they're actually going to fight. Yeah, there's a lot of fighting going on. So it's a big dumb, fun, kind of 80s style movie, if you want to think of it
Yeah.
that way. Feel like
Yeah.
just big destruction, and it's done well. Like I'm saying, this is what I want Michael Bay movies to be like because he likes to do
Yeah.
things really big, and he gets a lot of money for stuff. But this movie is what like Transformers should have been at times, or what Godzilla could have been. That it's done like okay, we're gonna see the monsters fight. It's not like well, the whole build up is monsters versus robots, and we get 12 minutes of it. It's like no, we got it all the time. We've gone orange, which means what? What happened there?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I might need something more than that to hold my interest. Same with action movies these days. It's gonna take a really creative take on an action movie for me to be really interested in it. Part of the problem is that Die Hard did such an amazing job with the action genre, and then all the movies that followed tried to capitalize on Die Hard's success. Yeah, that's why you have Die Hard on a blah blah blah. And it just got to the point where it was so played out that I didn't even want to watch action films anymore. Although I have a feeling that I would really enjoy at least the first Taken film. I have a feeling I would like that.
That is enjoyable.
I have not seen it, but that does look like the kind of movie that I would probably get into. And I did like the Bourne movies, at least the first 3 of them I think I watched. But those movies I found pretty enjoyable. And those were an interesting take on the action genre.
I mean, honestly, when it comes to those, like Taken kind of reminded me of what the hell? Crank. I actually really enjoyed that movie. It was fun to watch.
Crank was just so balls out ridiculous.
Yeah.
That it was
That's right. I have to watch Crank still.
The fact that there's a Crank 2 defies all laws of God and man. But that actually, I mean, I love the idea that there is a Crank 2. I have no desire to see it. I did enjoy the first one.
I haven't watched it, but yeah, I now that you mention it, I forgot it existed, and I kind of want to go back and watch it.
I just like the idea that there is one. I almost don't want to watch it because I feel like that almost ruins the joke that there is a second movie.
Right.
You know? And we're dancing around it, but yeah, the end of Crank is such that you would expect there not to be at least not a sequel involving the same character. And yet there is.
Shall we look into the future, gentlemen?
Sure.
Next week on Podcast Without Pretense.
I got a callback for Crank 3.
I think my foot went numb watching that movie.
So I watched Crank 2. Not really sure if I'm in the cult anymore.